actually their second home. Number one. Number two, these children are dynamic. They're running around, they're playing, they're eating, they're sleeping. And depending on the age of the child, they're not even aware of the environment. So the way we look after these children at home, of course, when they go to school also, the adult-child ratio is not the same as in the house. So you find that these children could be exposed to education, to health hazards, and they themselves are not aware. And then these children are vulnerable, these children are exposed, and then in the school, the people who are in school are educationists. Their job is to deliver education content. But you realize the way our schools have morphed, and this is an interesting situation that doesn't happen in other countries. Our schools have become centers of many other things. In our schools, we offer transport, we offer accommodation, we offer entertainment, we offer sports, not just learning, but because of the boarding situation and the necessity for transport and all these extracurricular activities, you find that a school is not just teaching, which is what it should be doing, but we are engaging in all these other areas. And wherever human beings are involved, then health becomes a concern so it's something we cannot wish away. And I'm sure we're going to discuss the various incidents we have seen that really need to make us think about how we manage the health and safety of our children in school.
There's also the part of food, water in the schools.
Yes, and unfortunately, that's what I'm saying, it's hospitality. It's like you're running a hotel, you know, because if you have a big school of 2,000, 2,500 children that you have to give breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you can imagine the kind of undertaking, from purchasing of the food to the storage of the food to the preparation of the food to the serving of the food to the cleanliness. You see, there's so much that actually goes into that activity of feeding the children even before they have gone to class to eat. You see, so it takes up a lot of the time of the school administration, and maybe that is where then things fall through the cracks, and those are the areas that we need to emphasize and encourage them on.
All right. Great. So I would like us to start looking at this matter by reviewing a few things as per the Kenya School Health Policy.
Yes.
And then this is the National School Health Policy 209.
Yes.
You mentioned off camera that there are improvements already being made.
The 2009 School Health Policy is being revised.
Yeah.
And but just to shock you, Chepsi, there are 17 documents around health and safety in school. 17, yes, that are available. But the tragedy is, I don't know how many of us have read them as school administrators, and how many of us have even understood what is in those policies. And then also there's a problem of implementation. It's very good to have a nice document on paper, but if you don't go to the next step of making it a reality so that it's a living document, then it's just that, a document on. And unfortunately, I think that is where we find ourselves in problems. Very good documents, and if that policy was implemented, then we would not find ourselves in the tragedy that we are finding today.
So we have so much papers.
We have beautiful documents, very nice
from
ones.
Experts.
Yes.
But as it said, vitu kwa ground.
Kwa ground ni tofauti, because no one is reading, no one is implementing, but more so, no one is enforcing to make sure that these documents actually have their purpose, which is to look after the health and the safety of the child while in school.
All right. Before we even look at the components of that policy, whose responsibility is it to oversee and enforce the implementation of the school health policy specifically?
That is probably one of the problems, because the policy that I saw was co-authored by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, and signed by the two cabinet secretaries. At that time, I think it was Amina Mohammed and Cecily for Health. That was a policy that was done at that time. But then who owns this policy? Who implements it? Is it Ministry of Health or Ministry of Education? Isn't it? It's stuck in the middle. I feel health, even if it's in education, should be done by the Ministry of Health, because education, their job is to deliver content. CBC, NEC, exams, mean score, grades, that is their job. But, and these are teachers. I don't think they have any business then running with health policy in the school. So I think the health ministry is the one that should be running with this thing. But because there's not quite an owner, or it's not quite clear, then you find these things then falling through the cracks. Yes. But ultimately, from the ministry level, we come to the ground. It's actually the role of the school administration, and it is very clear in the Education Act that the board and the PTA are responsible for the health and the safety of the children. But ultimately, the buck stops with me as a parent. I am the one primarily responsible, and I should be able to demand of my school to look after the health and safety of my child when they're in school.
So it's the parents are right to, like, when we had incidences of reported questionable cholera outbreak in schools in Nairobi, there were parents storming into the schools to demand answers and say cause chaos. They are on the right to do that.
Although, okay, true, they are, but I think it's a bit too late, because you're closing the barn door after the horse has bolted, as they say. As a parent who is conscious about the health and safety of my child, I should be able to know, even as I'm taking the child to school, you can inspect the dormitories, you can inspect the dining room, you can inspect where they're eating and they're sleeping, and try to enforce the same standards that I would if that child was in my house. And to demand, if the showers, the washrooms are not clean, I ask. If the toilets are not clean, I ask. If the dormitories are congested, I say something about it. If the health facility that they have is not equipped and doesn't have drugs or good personnel, that is the area where I insist as a parent. And if the school says they don't have money, as parents we can chip in, because then that is where the health of my child will be. But many parents, you find, unfortunately, they drop their children to school, they don't ask, they don't care, until now, when there is an outbreak or when there's a death, which is a bit too late.
So it's like reactive kind of.
Yeah, we cannot be reactive. We have to be proactive and preventative. As you're going into that school, as you're leaving your child, you're comfortable that child will be looked after the way you would have done it when the child was at home. And I also like to urge parents that if you're not happy with the way the health environment of our school is, nothing stops you from pulling out your child. Nobody says your child must go to that school, that particular one, to thrive and survive, isn't it? The health of your child is always first. So if you feel you're not comfortable, please don't be hesitant to move your child to an environment where you feel they'll be safer. Because also remember, children thrive in an environment of cleanliness and an environment of safety. It's all human beings, by the way. If you walk into an office and it's dirty, the garbage hasn't been collected, the room hasn't been swept, it's smelly, you can smell the urinal from your office, you won't be able to work. Let's be honest, isn't it? So these basic human needs cut across, and for children even more. If they're not sleeping well because the dorms are cold, or they are noisy, or they are so congested it's too hot, then how then do you expect the child to be productive the next day if they didn't sleep well? You see, so these things then they add up to the healthy child, and maybe we'll discuss later some of the mental health issues we are seeing. This could be it. That it's really stressing. It can just be background noise, but it raises your stress levels a bit. So it's a holistic picture that we're talking about.
Sure. All right, let's get back to this, the Kenya National School Health Policy. I'll just read through and then we'll pick what we're going to discuss. So the first one is values and life skills, gender issues, there is child rights and responsibilities, there is nutrition, there is special needs, the disabilities and rehabilitation, then there is WASH, the water, sanitation and hygiene, disease prevention and control, school infrastructure and the environmental safety. Those are some of the core principles of the policy. But you already mentioned that good on paper, but
and actually they're mirrored on the WHO. A health support, a health promoting school. The same principles that WHO envisaged are what are now being applied in the health school policy. But like we are saying, very good things. So for example, WASH. During the time of COVID is when we saw the most hand washing we have ever seen, isn't it? And what happens even in your experience? The rate of diarrheal diseases and went down, isn't it? Because not only was the water and soap provided, the hand washing was supervised, isn't it? We made sure those children, we made sure those children washed their hands, and that is why there was a general improvement in the health of the children as far as sanitation was concerned. We made sure that the water was clean. We were very conscious at that time, and that was the reason why we saw the improvement in the health of the children. So it is not just good to have the facilities. We have to supervise. When the children are going to the dining room and there are all these taps, you see outside the dining room there are all these taps. Have you provided adequate soap? But are the children actually washing their hands? 30 to 45 seconds is what we say, isn't it? With soap and water. Is it actually happening? Do we have soap that after the children use the washroom, they can wash their hands? Is there enough water to flush the toilets after? Or is it now a cycle of we try and then it doesn't work? So there's a lot of consistency that is required. It's a lot of hard work to make sure that we keep maintaining these standards. So the implementation of the health policy is actually the problem. Yes.
Wow. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we are back, we continue the conversation on the principles of the Kenya National School Health Policies. So stay around.
For the biggest of guests, from politicians to entertainers to content creators to whichever kind of a person you want to think that you'd want to see on the show, this is the place to be. Dr. Funeke tonight.
Each and every Wednesday. My name is DJ Lizney, not your ordinary DJ.
And of course, they call me the eagle himself. Your host, Dr. Funeke, is my name. Of course, every Wednesday at 7:30. See you there and don't touch.
Make sure to join us.
Tell your landlord as well. Jua unalipia wa parent.
Sikose.
From politics, health, cooking, relationships, and entertainment, join Linda Alela every weekday from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. only on Morning Cafe.
Your health is not just about going to the hospital. Your health is about prevention, it's about what you eat, it's about where you live. For this reason, the Body Garage Show exists.
The part of the brain that deals with communication.
Called primary hypertension, which means that you don't find anything. Join me, Dr. Chepsi, every day. Welcome back. You are watching Body Garage, the art of well-being, and I'm your host, Dr. Chepsi. And we are talking about health and safety in schools. And we are talking about the policy, the Kenya Health School Policy. And so right now we want to look at a few components of that, a few principles of that. So let's look at nutrition when the policy says nutrition. Maybe it's about food, what type of food, the safety of food, and the related. Yes.
So like I said, we find that when the children go to school, a lot of time and effort is spent on feeding them. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine in a boarding school, they have to have breakfast, they have to have lunch, and they have to have dinner. And food in between. When they go out, they have to be fed and things like that. And there are a number of factors that then determine the food that these children are given. And number one, of course, is cost. Yes. And number two, the food in season. because that could really affect the food that they're given. And number 3, then you find the other things. Sometimes because you find the food is cheap, you buy it in bulk.
Yeah.
And then you have a problem of storage of this food. Yeah. And then in some places you find there's a problem with adequacy of food, because you want the food to stretch throughout the term. So maybe the children are not fed enough of the proper food that is required for growth and development. Remember, these are young children, so they are growing at a very high rate. So then you have an element of malnutrition, because maybe they're being fed a lot of carbs, and maybe they could do with a bit more protein and a bit more fruit and vegetables. And then of course is the whole area of the whole sanitation in the cycle of food, from storage to preparation to serving to eating to cleaning, that whole cycle that is on repeat with every meal. So do we have nutritionists? Yes, I know the Ministry of Health they've done a whole study on the kind of food that our children are eating, and using local foods. They have even come up with guidelines on what to give the children while in school, depending on the ages. And this food is locally available and is nutritional and is not expensive. But is this in the plan of the school administration? Do they have professionals who review the menus and say, this food is lacking in protein, this food is lacking in vitamins, this food is not enough, especially like for boys, they eat so much and then they're here engaging in sports, they're all over the place. Are we giving them energy dense food? For girls, we know in the high school they're having their regular menses. Some of them could be iron deficient. Do we have then enough food to supplement that iron? Are these children having enough clean drinking water? So those are the things that then we need to think about in terms of food, to make sure that is a food being stored in a healthy way, or do we have aflatoxins in the food? At what point do we decide we shall throw away this whole consignment of food, no matter how expensive it was? And things like that.
And that brings us to look at something that's already in the public consumption. Several school cases about outbreak of, let's say, diarrheal illnesses, because of, most likely, of course, because if it's mass, like almost every student is complaining about it, it could be coming from a common source.
A common source, yes.
Which is the food.
Food or the water, yes.
Food or
the water, yes.
There is a specific case that we mentioned, and we can mention this comfortably because it's already published.
In the public domain, yes.
The Mukumu girls incident. Any comment on that?
Okay, so I think the Mukumu girls incident can happen to any school. So none of the schools should stop and think, oh, we are safe because it happens to them. It can happen to anybody. And although there have been many reports, but we're not still quite clear on where the source of the contamination was that led to the symptoms that the girls had. And it looks like there were also multiple causative organisms, because I read a report by one of our microbiology professors, and she was saying, unless we find the root cause of where the contamination is coming from, then we will keep having this cycle. So it looks like the water may have been contaminated, it could have been a batch of food, but I think for me in that case, what stands out was the slow turnaround time. From the time the first incident was reported, and the second one, and the third one, to the time now we are taking action, such time had passed, and more children were getting affected, and the ones who were affected were getting sicker and sicker, to the point that even we lost lives. We lost lives of girls, we lost lives of one of the members of staff. And even after the school closed and the administration was changed, when they came back, the incidences continued, which means that we hadn't quite addressed the root cause. If the problem was in the water, you realize that the water from the tanks goes through all the pipes in the school. So you can imagine, to decontaminate, it means you have to flush, pump water through the whole system with high concentration of disinfectant. That's a lot of work. So that, because even if you stop the source of contamination in the water, the pipes still have contaminated water. In a school that size, you can imagine, If the source was the food or whatever it is, what what was done, but more so, what lesson can we learn to make sure that this doesn't happen again? This is a tragedy that doesn't need to happen. So in a school where children begin to complain that they're not feeling well, what action is taken? Do we ignore? Do we take them to the sanatorium? Do we take them to hospital? Do we report to public health? What happens? You know, you'd rather report and get help than we think about whose mistake it was later. But many times we want to cover up, and then until it's too late. I think the tragedy at Mukumu could have been, the magnitude could have been reduced, so that from the beginning, as soon as we picked up a problem, we are very proactive in dealing with it, so it doesn't happen again. It's very sad.
I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from such incidents
Yes.
that other schools can work on.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Reviewing one of the reports that was written from the journalist's point of view, the medical, it seemed that the issue was enforcement, because one of the, according to that report, one of the cooks
that
reported
there
to
was
the
a problem.
administration that there's a problem with our storage.
Yes,
but it was turned down.
Yes.
So I think those are one of the things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't want to, and maybe at that point, maybe when the person who took that action didn't realize that it could snowball to become so bad. So just to tell them that with children decompensate very quickly.
Very fast.
They collapse very fast. And a healthy looking child will be collapsed in the next 5 minutes. So you need to take such things very, 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 very seriously. And you'd rather the cost of even taking them to hospital, getting rid of that contaminated food, rather than wait for the consequences which we are facing now.
All right. So on to water, sanitation and hygiene. Any comment on that?
I think, again, one of the things that I find that many schools should do, and now we encourage them to do, is health and safety audits. And in the schools where we work, we always encourage health and safety audits. And the audits are usually done by independent auditors who come and have a very fresh look at the water and the health and the sanitation of the schools, and they're able to advise. And this is a very good exercise, because sometimes you find that you are actually sitting on a time bomb and you didn't realize. So then you're able to take corrective measures, especially now that it has rained. You find that this is the time in which contamination occurs, and so it's a good thing that we need to do regular audits and document them and implement the audits. If we have water in our washrooms for our children, it should be available, it should be abundant, but then they should wash their hands. Provide soap and make sure the children are washing their hands.
And the administrators in the schools should not be scared about audits.
They shouldn't be scared about audits.
Because one of the things that we fear so much in Kenya is being cross-examined.
But you see, we are not perfect. And if you look at an audit from a perspective of it helping me improve, yes, we shouldn't be afraid of being told something that is wrong, because you will correct it. And the next time they come and check, they'll find that you're doing well. I'd rather be told in advance rather than an accident or an incident happens, and I regret that I didn't know.
You did not. Sure. All right. So who are these people who can help with doing the audit in terms of health and safety?
So we do it, but we usually contract experts. There are people who are certified to do health and safety audits in institutions and in companies, and that's their job. Then they give you the report, and then you're able now to consume it as a school or a healthcare practitioner to see how then you can improve, what changes you can make in the school environment.
But when it comes to things like water, food, will a school benefit from direct interaction? Maybe there is a public health officer attached to a county health facility close by.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, that used to work in the past. We'd have public health officers who would walk around, and they'd come to a school and they would inspect. And those public health officers were very feared because they helped with enforcing policy, isn't it? That system seems to have broken down, because if we had these public health officials walking around, some of the things that we see in these schools would not exist. You know, the dirt, the untidiness, it would not be there, because these public health officers really used to enforce public health policy. And then, of course, they are attached to a public health facility. So in case there's an outbreak of something, then they're able to mobilize the facility to step in. Yeah.
Right.
That seems to have broken down, and I wish it would come back, because it really would support the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about mental health in schools.
Yes.
And I understand that's something big for you.
Yes, actually, in this facility where we are, it's a mental wellness center, and we offer mental wellness assistance to anyone who needs it. And this came up because when we were working in schools, we realized that especially after COVID, many children had mental wellness challenges. You can imagine during COVID what happened. You're not in school it was 8 months.
Yeah.
You're at home in this uncertain environment. In the news you're just reading. That thing that used to happen, the COVID daily reports were very stressful. I don't know how many people have died, how many are in ICU, you cannot travel, you cannot. So that provided a lot of anxiety for the children. And then the children were also not working. I mean, the children were not going to school, the parents were not working, so everyone is at home.
At home, yeah.
They're not allowed to go and play with their friends, they're not allowed to interact with their friends. And then what we did is we gave them a gadget with high-speed internet. So these children, they found refuge on social media. And of course, then all the evils of social media came about. There was a lot of pornography we saw, and then a lot of drug and substance abuse because of idleness. What will you do the whole day? You're not playing sports, you're not studying, and then also because there was a lot of parental conflict. We saw that many parents had lost their jobs. And when you stay with somebody for too long, 24 hours, mnakosana, and that would rub off onto the children, isn't it?
Yeah.
So by the time the children came back to school, they had gone through so much in those 8 months. A lot of anxiety, they had lost loved ones, they had suffered a lot of want, and we found that then debriefing and they had picked up bad habits. So then undoing them was a challenge. Yeah. Currently, our young people, of course, have mental health challenges, and there are many. And many of them are a reflection of the society that we're living in. They're coming from broken homes, their parents are fighting, they're struggling, and then this now manifests in their work, in their academics. There's a lot of substance abuse, drug abuse, LGBTQ, pornography, indiscipline. In fact, this year, schools have not been on fire, thanks be to God. It was a thing in the past, towards mocks or towards the national exams, the dormitories would go up in fire. It was a cry for help, And so this is an area that requires special professional attention. I know they have very many guidance and counseling teachers who try and help the children with mental wellness, but the guidance and counseling teachers also need to be supported, because remember, they're teachers. Maybe they need to get some professional support, so that then we are able to guide our children and to arrest problems before they become too much. Yeah.
All right. I understand that there is a case that you wanted to share about a mental health experience with a student, right?
Which one?
Yeah. So we're going to hold that thought and we take a break. When we are back, you will share with us that experience.
For the biggest of guests, from politicians to entertainers to content creators to whichever kind of a person you want to think that you'd want to see on the show, this is the place to be. Dr. Funeke tonight.
Each and every Wednesday. My name is DJ Lizney, not your ordinary DJ.
And of course, they call me the eagle himself. Your host, Dr. Funeke, is my name. Of course, every Wednesday at 7:30. See you then. Don't touch.
Make sure to join us.
Tell your landlord as well. Jua unalipia parent.
Sikose.
From politics, health, cooking, relationships, and entertainment. Join Linda Alela every weekday from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. only on Morning Cafe.
Your health is not just about going to the hospital. Your health is about prevention, it's about what you eat, it's about where you live. For this reason, the Body Garage Show exists.
The part of the brain that deals with communication.
Called primary hypertension, which means that we don't find a reason for that.
Join me, Dr. Chepsi, every Thursday, 8 p.m.
Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Beyond the Limit. We have not even scratched the surface when it comes to knowledge about disability. Beyond the Limit with me, Zainab Mohammed, every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
You know what pops in my house more than the rainbow? Walls. You know what I love between me and him? Space. Don't worry, dishes. No one is doing me either. Hey, not much. Just hanging around. Pull yourself together. Enough on the jokes. Let's talk about real estate. Catch The Realtor every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m.
Want to learn?
For the first step, we are going to draw out the balloons. As you can see, we have balloons on our birthday cards.
Have fun. Then catch Kids on the Block every Saturday at 9 a.m.
For the biggest of guests, from politicians to entertainers to content creators to whichever kind of a person you want to think that you'd want to see on the show, this is the place to be. Dr. Funike tonight.
Each and every Wednesday. My name is DJ Lizney, not your ordinary DJ.
And of course, they call me the eagle himself. Your host, Dr. Funike, is my name. Of course, every Wednesday at 7:30. See you then. Don't touch.
Make sure to join us.
Tell your landlord as well. Jua unalipia wa parent.
Sikose.
You know what pops in my house more than the rainbow? Walls. You know what I love between me and him? Space. Don't worry, dishes. No one is doing me either. Hey, not much. Just hanging around. Pull yourself together. Enough on the jokes. Let's talk about real estate.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Body Garage, the Art of Wellbeing, and I'm your host, Dr. Chepsi. Today we are talking about the health and safety in schools, and we are continuing on mental health among the students.
Young people, yes.
Yeah. Yes, there's a story that you would like to share about an experience. Yeah.
But you see, this was not actually my experience. This was in the public domain some years ago. And this was reported in the press, and so in one of our schools in Nairobi, there was a fire that broke out, and this fire apparently was started by a student, and in this fire we actually lost some children. Some kids actually died in the fire, but when it was investigated, it was found that the girl who started the fire it looked like it was a cry for help because she did not want to be in that school and had been forced by her parents to go to that school, even when she did not want to go to that school. So this was her way of, you know, I don't know, in her wisdom.
When you communicate and people don't listen to you.
Yes, in the wisdom of a 16-year-old, because she was 16. You know, you see how children are short-sighted. Huh? In the wisdom of a 16-year-old, this is probably how she felt was best to communicate to the parents. But you see what happened eventually. I don't think she saw the far-reaching consequences. Typically, young children don't see the far-reaching consequences. So this child, she burnt the school, there were loss of assets, there was loss of life, there was disruption of learning, and there's that cloud that will always hang over that school because of that incident. And unfortunately, of course, she left the school, and then after she reached the age of 18, then she was sentenced there, and she's serving time for the crime. But I don't think she was in that mental space to even understand what she was doing and the consequences of whatever it is that she did. And I feel maybe we should have listened to her a bit more. If your child doesn't want to be in a certain school, I mean, it's not the end of the world. You know, let her. She didn't want to go to school and she wants to stay at home for 3 months. It's okay.
So sometimes parents should not look at a child as being stubborn.
Yes, maybe they are being stubborn. Yes, they are being stubborn, maybe from our perspective, because we want to solve the problem and move on to other things. But maybe what children need is a bit of time. And when children come to our wellness center, the things they tell us, I think parents can listen a bit more and come down to the level of the child, you know, so that you see things through their eyes, through their lens. There was also another child, unfortunately, of a politician, again, who was in another school and didn't want to be there. That one shot himself. It was in the paper recently, isn't it? And he didn't want to be in that school, and we were insisting. The guy took his life. So what pressure are we putting on our children? Is it necessary? Do they have to go to that school or play in that sport? Or if it's not a train smash, you know, let it be, you know, so that then you can reduce the pressure on the child. So these are the things that we need to think about as parents. And these are examples that are in the press, you can read, of how maybe we can look after the mental wellness of our children by not applying too much pressure on them. We know that as parents, our life is hard. Do I list our problems? Fuel, taxes, unga, sugar, work. People are losing their jobs. You're losing your property. You're losing, and sometimes that stress or that pressure then trickles down to the children, and the children also have their own demands. So when a child asks for something, you react irrationally. You know, you lash out. But the child does not understand your pressure. They don't understand where you've been, and we are unreasonable. So maybe that is something we need to also think about. How do we react when our children ask for things, or when they lose that fourth pair of shoes that you've bought and you really get violent with the child because there's no money, isn't it? But they don't see our pressure. They don't see ours, and maybe they shouldn't. Maybe we should protect them from the reality of what we are going through. So maybe as parents we also need help. We need to seek professional help so that we are able then to contain ourselves and our emotions as we are dealing with our children. And maybe not, some of us are drinking a bit, we are spending a lot of time outside there, fighting with our spouses. This does not then do well for the children.
All right, let's talk about the school infrastructure and the school environment, how that impacts the health
of the child. Okay, so according to WHO, every school should be a health promoting school. And remember, the health of the school is across the board. So from the time you walk into the school should be an environment that is quiet, that is peaceful, that is clean. It doesn't have to be expensive, but is clean and conducive for learning. And this actually then leads to mental stability, and then the child is able to perform. Because remember, learning is a higher function, but we have to deal with the basics. So cleanliness, silence, order, food, space, you know, so that then the child is able to settle and grasp the maths and the English. That's If it's in a boarding school, the children need to be able to sleep adequately. They need to be able to sleep in a warm environment, but also not too hot. Sometimes the boarding rooms they're congested, and then all the windows are closed. So it's like a small oven. So two things will happen. One, if there's an infectious disease, it will spread very fast. If a child has a flu, it will, or a skin infection, it will spread. If you have children who are snorers, it will keep the others who are awake. No, these are the realities, isn't it? That the child will not sleep, and it's too hot, the air is not circulating. So then the child doesn't get good sleep. The next day they come to class, they're sleeping, they will never learn. And it adds to their mental stress. Then we were being told in a certain school how children are taking stimulants to stay awake, because there's also then the pressure of work.
Studying.
They are studying mean score. If you go to all these schools, they have a mean score that everyone has a target. Everyone has to achieve the mean score. So there's pressure of work, there's too much work, they are dozing. So then they're busy taking the stimulants to stay awake, which is then now another problem. If the children are not eating well and eating enough, unfortunately in this age group of growth, quantity, as well as quality is very important. And if they're not taking part in extracurricular activities to expend the extra energy that they have, both intellectual extracurricular activities, so the debate, the drama, the music, and then also the sports, And then when it's time to close school, children should go home. You find, unfortunately, some children are detained in school, especially the candidate classes, for extra tuition. That doesn't help. It just adds to the mental distress of the children. So when school closes, let them go home, let them rest, let them go up country, let them go and milk the cows like other children in the village, Then when they come back, then they can continue with. So that the health consciousness of school in every point is important. So we have visited many schools, and we've toured many health facilities within the school. And sadly, most facilities they're below par of what is expected in a facility supposed to serve that school. You find that the school has made a lot of effort in very good facilities, but healthcare, which is crucial to the well-being of these children, you find the facilities are run down, maybe they're leaking, they're not well equipped, they don't have adequate staff, they don't have adequate drugs, it's not painted. I mean, it's not a facility then that these people can look out for. Then the other thing,
it's not an ideal school clinic.
Yes, and I think it's just that there's not enough attention to that, because it can't be too expensive. Or if you're not able to do it, then give it to someone else who can run it for you. Then you find that they don't have a contingency plan, especially in the case of emergencies. We know that when, especially there is trauma, you need to act within a very short time. So if there's head injury, abdominal injury, severe asthma, epilepsy, blood pressure, if you don't act quickly, number one, but also with expertise, you need to know what you're doing. And sometimes you find that there's a delay in movement, and that has caused the lives of children. Sometimes you find that these people are kept in the facility for too long because the person who's managing them is not quite sure what to do next. And remember, the staff who work in health facilities are also not supervised. Who is supervising them? So
it's an independent school clinic.
Yes, but the person who's running the clinic is not supervised by anybody.
And there's no clear linkage between this school clinic and the health facilities around.
Yes. Or someone else who they can ask. Because like in some of the schools that we manage, sometimes you will find that the person on the ground will call me, because they're a bit far, and they'll even give a video call, and I can see the child, and I can see exactly what is going on. So you see that I'm able to advise the person on the ground, do this, I'm sending an ambulance, this is happening. They do not have that support of a senior person who can tell them what to do. Maybe you're calling the parents are far, especially in national schools where children study very far from home. So you can imagine if my mother is in Kisumu and I'm in Machakos and you're calling the parent to come, it might take 2-3 days, isn't it? And a child who was not very sick becomes ill over 2-3 days.
As they're waiting.
But the person on the ground is not able to make a call and say, this is no longer a flu, this is pneumonia, this needs admission, this needs like that, So I feel the school health infrastructure needs to be empowered a bit more. But when you talk to them, they say the government should provide. The government doesn't have money. The government, you know. But remember what I said, part of a health promoting school is the family and the community. The family of those children who are attending that school and the community that school serves are the people who should be keen to make sure that the children are safe while in school. So nothing stops the parents from coming together and saying, we're going to give 200 shillings a term per child to look after them. The facility, why not? Yeah, out of the school budget. Or we're going to give 300 shillings to hire a nurse, a doctor. There are so many unemployed doctors in this country who can actually put in that skill to run these health facilities. And it can be done. It can be done for the sake of the health and safety of our children. And these are the same doctors who will go and report that the water is contaminated. They will report that there is overcrowding. They will report that the hand sanitation is not happening. They will deal with mental health issues. Food storage. And even for the staff, because remember the staff are also part of the school community. They also fall sick, isn't it? So, but there needs to be intention around this area. And the parents can come together and say, absolutely, we will do it. The same way the parents come together to buy buses. Buses are not provided by government, isn't it? Or they come together and they say they want to build a dormitory. They do it, isn't it? Or if you tell them we're going to Dubai for a school, they will send the money very fast. You know, it happens. So I don't see why then the parents cannot come together to serve. And that health facility can even, we can say, this clinic is not just for the school, it's even for the community of the people around. Because
so it's a well packaged facility that can take care of the students, the teachers and other staff, and the community.
Because you realize that sometimes you can find if a school has 2,500 students and maybe 300 staff, that's 3,000, and these are people with their families. So you're supporting up to 4,000 people. That is the catchment area of a dispensary of a level 2 facility, isn't it? That is a whole, some sub-county hospital. So you see, that is a big population. And you might find that is the only facility that can serve that. So why not do it well? It helps everybody when you have something like that, yeah? So we need to be more intentional and to be more proactive. Let's not always wait for government to help us in this area.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Because of time, let's go on to summarizing. So what is the way forward then when it comes to ensuring that the health and safety of these schools is concerned? What are some of the things that can be put forward to ensure that we are somewhere?
Okay. Number one, the board and the PTA are responsible individually and communally, to make sure that the health and the safety of the children is obtained. And I'll give you very quickly, there was a case the other day that a ruling was done, Kakamega Primary School. There was a stampede in 2020, I don't know if you remember, and I think 15 or 16 children died. And when the parents went to court, they were awarded 1.25 million shillings per child. And in that ruling, the judge was very clear that the board and the PTA were negligent in looking after the health and safety of the children, according to the Education Act, number one. So the board and the PTA, it is your responsibility to look after the health and the safety of your, no matter what it takes, you are primarily responsible. So please support the principal, please support your children, do whatever it takes to mobilize the resources to make sure that your children are safe. Number two, it's the responsibility of your parent. That child is yours 24/7, whether they're in school or whether they're at home. And as a parent, do not be afraid to demand for good health care for your child, wherever they are. Number three, to call upon government to support by enforcing policy. Providing policy, yes, doing a lot of advocacy, but ultimately you need to crack the whip so that then those people who are not following policy guidelines can know that there's some seriousness. And when you're enforcing policy, also provide funding. You see, if government provided capitation money, say 200 shillings per child per term for healthcare, then you can ask the principal, why are you not using the the money, because the principals say we do not have enough. Yeah, but even for private schools that do not have government support, they still have the same challenges. So to call upon them to be intentional, your board, your PTA, look after the needs of the children, because we need these children. They are our tomorrow, and we need to look after them. And every time we read the tragedy of a child in school, we feel so bad, because they put their lives in our hands, and we have let them down. Yeah.
All right, I think we are going to stop there.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Njoki.
Thank you for having
your
me.
time.
Thank you.